Woke Minds of the T-minus 365 day series. We are here at a milestone of podcast number 10, which means, because we're doing this on a weekly basis, that this is the 70th episode that we have officially released. What an incredible accomplishment, considering that this was just a wild idea that has actually, we just kept putting one foot over or in front of the other, and just doing one shoot after another, one edit after another, one scripting and voiceover after another, one podcast after another, adding one additional skills or new element or something to progress the character. And I think we're getting to some level of momentum, and I gotta say that this level of commitment, this level of every day, we have this additional bunch of things that normal people don't, or our previous lives didn't have, and now including all of that, how will it be once this might be over? And yes, both in terms of the 365 days, but also what if life is over? But that's a whole nother story. Actually, this is that story. What if life is over after 365 days? But what I'm getting at is the fact that we can continue to manage the entire day-to-day stuff while still committing to this, while still taking the time to reflect on these thoughts that I think go buried underneath the day-to-day running around, the hustling and bustling, the worshipping of the dollar and trying to climb whatever social ladder, whatever corporate ladder, whatever status ladder, whatever social media ladder. All these things are external validations that really leave you always thirsting for more, as opposed to finding the ocean of fulfillment and quenching of thirst within oneself. And this is my journey to that, and I'm extremely grateful to the environment that has allowed for that, for the team that has allowed for that, for the commitment that we've all made to this project, which the day by day the commitment grows stronger and stronger, and it becomes something that has a life of its own. You don't want to break the streak. So I'm extremely grateful that we've faced so many challenges through this journey up to this point, but still we have not stopped our filming, not stopped our character development, and we really hope to turn a manifestation, a transformation, a realization of what can be achieved in a matter of a year. And even this year has been greatly plagued by the pandemic of the coronavirus, which has really, I think, brought mortality to people's to the forefront of their mind, to help them see more of the things that really matter and the things that don't. And also it has forced people to go inside, both physically inside the homes, as well as many others that were inside the home to go inside themselves, such as I'm delving into. I mean, the scripts that I write, it's very interesting when I sit down to write a script about a topic, such as day 64 was opportunity, day 65 war, day 66 God. These are grandiose topics, and I sit down with actually a clear mind, an open mind, and it just pours out of me. It just something that I don't have any trepidation or fear of, oh my gosh, I gotta write on this topic and I don't know where to start. That strengthening of the writing muscle, or the thinking muscle, or the creativity muscle, or the language and the arts and the conceptual muscles of the mind are strengthened enormously. Like, now you can give me a topic like cup or water, which actually it was one of the topics, as well, any concept or item or whatnot, and I can write on that because I have now given myself kind of a experimental journey of creating these full scripts from just whatever concept. Just today I added, I was just at the gym and I thought a few more concepts that I just put on the list without any consideration of, hey, do I have much to say about this? I just have the confidence that when I apply my attention, when I apply my critical thinking towards it, I will find the words, the concepts that relate to my life and be able to channel that concept through my, through the window that is me and share my perspectives. I am very curious what this will actually be. I mean, like, is this a autobiography? Is this a self-transformation documentary? Is this a what are those things called when at the end of your life, obituary, which could be quite interesting, but I'm not sure what this is, but it is something, and I don't know if it's meant for my viewing at the end of my life, or my viewing in my older ages or my golden years, if that were to come, for the children that I won't have, or I don't know who it is for, or maybe someone else that's embarking on such a journey of, hey, I know that there's an ocean of potentiality, which, by the way, potential was the name of episode 68, which oh my gosh, that is such a haunting word to me, but nevertheless, I'm grateful to be at this point. I understand that this project may not actually fully go to completion, and it's not because we'll break our commitment. As I think day by day we are strengthening our commitment. It's that I'm mindful that I might not actually live until the completion of this this 365 days, which is not to be an over-exaggeration, but rather a very practical reality of life. And I think it would drive home the point of what I'm trying to convey, of how unpredictable life is. Our quote here at T- is, don't waste today. I've gained such a conscious awareness of my life, about my limited time. As much as I was aware before, this T- 365 day project has really, I'm trying to convey the story to others, but mostly I have conveyed it to myself, as by driving it deeper, by writing out these concepts like day 64, opportunity, how significant opportunities have been in my life to allow me to be here in front of your presence, as I was born in the country next to where I am in India. So my motherland is in Bangladesh. I was born there in a mud house, and I could have been amongst my relatives, I could have been amongst my cousins and never have left the country like most of my relatives have not. And who would I have become? How much of the world would I have gotten to see? How much of the world would have gotten to know my existence? Not saying that is any significant percentage, but it would have been an infinitesimal amount compared to the slight degree less that it is now. But it's the opportunities that have driven my father to take a chance, to apply for a visa to a first world country. It's the opportunities that have allowed me to get to such a land and be able to go through the educational system, be able to get into med school, be able to have the courage and have the abundance of opportunity to say, hey, even if I don't complete my medical schooling to become a doctor, that I live in such a opportunity-rich soil land that if I plant myself somewhere else, that I can still blossom. Wow, those are some great analogies that I came up on the fly. Maybe I should consider some freestyle rapping. No, I actually would like to try some what is it called? Not just stand-up comedy, but also when it's improv. I think I would be pretty. I would like to see how well I do in improv, because I think it would train my mind or my thinking to be quite sharp and dynamic and on the fly. So yeah, that was the topic of Day 64 opportunity. How much a nation such as my motherland of Bangladesh starves and is decimated by the lack of opportunity, and having such a rich talent pool without it's like having a lot of seeds but not the nutrient rich soil to grow that in. Actually, my motherland has a lot of nutrient rich soil for agriculture, so that's actually how they are surviving, how they are allowing their families to be fed, is by growing their own food. Day 65, war. I am not a supporter of any side of any war, and it's not because of a religious agenda. It's not because of a political agenda. It's not because I want to be like Switzerland. I just don't want to get involved. And it's not because I'm afraid of choosing one side, thus the other side is an enemy. It's just that I don't care enough to get involved into a war, both on the battlefield and as well as on the rioting, as well as on the petition, as well as on the, like, none of that is a complete misuse of my time. I'm not saying it's a misuse of the people that do it. That's their values. That's what they stand up for. Great for them. Actually, I don't know if I'm passionate about anything like that I would march for it. I just couldn't justify that. But nevertheless, the one war that I am very much a proponent of, very much in support of, is a war against oneself. A war against the changes that I want to make within myself. That is not something that I should be lackadaisical about. That is not something that I should be whimsical or dilly-dallying about, but rather be very, very strategic, very methodical, and execute on those plans and execute whatever stands in the way between me and myself to create those changes, because it cannot be coddled into those changes. I have seen that there is a great battle between the prefrontal cortex, which is the most developed part of our neurology, and the most primitive part of our neurology, the brainstem, which is kind of the monkey brain, and the Homo sapien brain, are very much in conflict. Very much, one wants to eat the donut. One understands or has a consciousness. This comes with consequences. One wants to just do the things that provide physical pleasure and avoid the things that cause physical pain, such as working out. And so this battle between the two determines the quality of our lives. The more of this that we follow, of course, the more of the wonderful things that our life brings, because it's the hard decisions, which is very interesting. It's not the easy decisions that create the life we want, which in another reality, I could see how that could be the case. But in this reality, that's not the case. It's actually, when you're faced with two decisions, I guess decision by the nature of the word suggests duality, but when you're faced with a decision, the hardest one tends to be the one that will actually take your life in the direction. Oh wow, as I'm saying that, I just realized a very important matter that I'm dealing with, and I know that the two outcomes, I can go back to the past, or I can do, which is what I'm wanting, what I'm craving, what I'm missing, or I can move forward, which is not what I'm wanting, is the harder decision. It's the one that I wish I didn't have to do. And so in saying that, I have gained some level of clarity of which direction to go, and the benefits will come. Not now, it's hard to see that now, but in the future, maybe even in the distant future. So that is my only tolerance for war. Day 66, interesting number for an interesting topic, is the topic of God. So I just happened to fall. That was not any coordination of 66 and God, which the number 6 is quite antithetical to the concept of God. I didn't always have a distant relationship with God, or with the concept of God. In fact, growing up, I grew up in a very religious home. Still is a very religious home. But growing up in a culture that was very radically different than what I was being taught inside the house, inside the home, I began to see that, hey, if these people could believe just as equally, then something's different. And that began to open up some other questions that led to a complete dissolving of the framework of any concept. But more than anything, I have actually, even past that point, I remember very distinct parts of my life where I prayed, even knowing that I hadn't prayed for a long time, even knowing that I'm coming to God in a time of great need, and prayers fell on silent ears, which prompted me to figure out other ways to cope, other ways to move forward and justify reality, justify nature, and little by little I moved on. I remember there was parts of my life where I sat in a mosque, as I went to the mosque quite frequently with my father and my brothers, and during Friday prayer there's a long ceremony, when they give the long talks, what is it called? Ceremony. No, it's like that. It's a I know the word. It's SERMO. I will figure it out by the end of this podcast. But nevertheless, during that long talk, it is ceremony, SERMON. However, that is correctly pronounced, which I am forgetting right now. During such a religious talk, I remember sitting amongst all these other religious people and thinking, not looking down upon them, like, look at these buffoons. They are finding irrational ways of coddling themselves towards the harsh reality of their demise, of their death, in conjuring up some deity that has their best interest in heart and is looking after them, which that could be one way of analyzing the psychology of what leads to religion. But I looked at all the people around me with great yearning, great, even could I say, jealousy, that I don't have that level of delusion, and I wish that I did. Whether it's delusion or accuracy, they have something in which they get to wake up and feel that an omnipotent, all-powerful, all-loving, all-merciful being is by their side. And that is something that I'm living life without. And as a conscious being that is aware of his mortality, without answers from the universe, without answers from any book written by man, could the answer, could the comfort come from a book or a philosophy that is even claimed to come from a being much more superior than that of the meek and quite irrational man? Day 67, which is the topic of love, is one of my favorite topics to write about because of how much, quite similar to the previous topic of God, it is such a conceptual idea that I, for some reason, am having a very, very difficult time disavowing. There are other concepts like religion, like the schooling system, like the corporate structure of working and slaving away for the vast majority of your life, that I'm immediately able to say, oh, yeah, that's not for me. Even marriage, something that tends to have quite a bit of joy, or as marketed as something to be enjoyed, marketed quite well, might I add. But love, that is something that I'm very reluctant to give up on, and it's because I don't have anything else to hold on to. There's nothing more than this one aspect of life. Like, if there's a quote, or there's a few versions of this that says, some people eat to live and other people live to eat. Some people travel to live and some people live to travel, or I'm sure you can create variations of those, but if I may create one myself, or declare one for myself, that applies best to me, or best encompasses what I live for. Some people love some people love to live, I live to love. And I'm not shy about that. I'm not weak about saying that. I'm not embarrassed about saying that. I'm not as a businessman, as someone who's striving for more entrepreneurial growth, I'm not in any way reluctant to put that as my North Star, as opposed to any financial goal, which I've made that mistake in the past, putting my life's North Star at a fixed dollar amount, which now seems quite immature and quite caught up in the world, that I day by day am wanting to disassociate with more and more, which reminds me of another concept, which is some people become wealthy so that the world can know their name, and other people become wealthy so that they can get away from the world. Day by day, I'm going from the first category to the second category, as I'm really finding an entire sanctuary within myself, and that beats any palace, any because it's if you don't have your internal mechanisms, your mind and your heart and your emotions, all these other aspects of and I think this is roughly captured in love yourself first before you love someone else, which I think is too much of an oversimplification, and thus people are like, yeah, you know, like it sounds nice and it sounds cute, but I can't wait, or you know, like, oh, it'll work out or something, you know. I think it should be so much more profound than that. It should be like, you know, either might I say, know yourself first before getting to know someone else. So it's like, date yourself first. It's like, you know, pop the cherry with yourself first before doing that elsewhere. With that, let's move to day 68, potential. Another word that has left a deep impression in my life, as I've always been cognizant that I was on a path to exploring what the ocean of potential within me was, and that my life's goal and my life's commitment would be to discover more and more of that potential and bring that to life. I've always held the belief that all the quandaries, all the difficulties, all the pain points that I hold in my life are solvable if only I could dive into my mind and find that particular key of that particular problem, but it does exist there. So I've never thought any problem is unsolvable. I've always thought that I cannot seem to access some part of my mind, or I cannot get to some part of my mind, or I don't know how to, or I'm failing in some way to access the key that it rests within my mind. I never saw it as it's not within my capacity to solve or actually completely resolve that matter for my life. It's just been an internal conflict of where to find that within myself. There's a great concept by someone that I've studied well, Ed Milet. He has this concept that states that at the end of your life, and he is quite a faithful, you can be faithful without being religious. So I'll say he is a very religiously devout individual. So he believes that God created a version of himself, as God would have created a version of everyone, in the way that God wanted them to be. And it is our life's path to get as close to that person as possible by the time we die, so that if after death we are introduced to that person of the maximum expression of our potentiality, it's not, wait, this is who I could have been? It's, oh, this is like meeting myself, or oh, this is like staring into a mirror. It's who I have become. And I really gravitated to this idea. I remember listening to this idea for the first time in Bogota, Colombia. That feels like another lifetime ago. I was there with my significant other, and I was sharing with her, like, hey, check out this Ed Milet guy. We actually got to meet him later on. So it's very fascinating that we actually discovered about him together and studied this concept, and I believe that I'm conscious of this. That's the first step, but getting to that point, it's going to be extremely difficult. And I say that because it's so easy not to make that happen. It's so easy to do the minimal or do the middle, but to carve yourself, to be like the sculptor and out of marble, shape yourself, your habits, your thinking, your interactions with people. Like, that is a true artisan, and that requires mastery. That requires a lifetime of dedication. And I do believe I can get there. I do believe that I have the capacity of not willpower, but of creativity, of implementation, of putting things in place so that I can outsmart myself, so I can outmaneuver myself, and make that happen. So basically, when the monkey mind version of me is asleep, using the prefrontal cortex version of me to rearrange my environment or my day or my habits, so that I only give my primitive mind or primitive brain the choices that are good. For example, only keeping food that I find my prefrontal cortex, the more wise and mature part of my brain finds as fuel, not as comfort food. Which, speaking of comfort food, I haven't had ice cream in a long time. And now I feel guilty actually thinking about actually even having ice cream. But nevertheless, day 69 was about Annihilation, which was about a movie that my brother and I watched. And the concept of the movie was self-sabotage. And that really resonated with me because in regards to getting to the full potential of ourselves, the greatest obstacle that we face is our own self. We are the biggest causer of our own self-suffering and self-infliction. Day 70 was quite interesting, about another movie. This is not a movie review show, but about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and how the supercomputers concluded that the answer to life and all its mysteries was the number 42, and how I conclude that people look at life in a wide variety of different ways, as a game, as a test, as a challenge, as a journey. I happen to look at it as a collection of memories with meaningful memories with meaningful people, and I want to make a new experience each day of my life, so I actually have more memories and I don't end up living each day so many times over and over to the point where I've just lived most of my life the same way. With that, I wanted to conclude podcast number 10 and thank you for being a part of what has been an incredible 70-day journey so far. I am quite curious to know from you about your version of potential. How do you see the manifestation of your potential, or where are you in regards to your recognition of that and execution of that? With that, I am looking forward to seeing you on day number 71.